The sky over the Oakwood estates was a mocking, brilliant blue, the kind of clear afternoon that should have promised nothing but the scent of mown grass and the distant hum of wind chimes. Instead, the air was thick with a terror so localized and sharp it felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. I stood on my front lawn, my hands trembling as I clutched my phone, watching my 10-year-old son, Leo, struggle for a breath that wouldn't come. His face was a terrifying shade of dusky purple, his small shoulders heaving in the rhythmic, desperate dance of a severe asthma attack. 911, what is your emergency? The voice crackled in my ear. My son. He can't breathe, I gasped. Severe asthma. We're at 442 North Ridge. Please hurry. Ambulance is en route, sir. Stay on the line. I looked toward the entrance of our cul-de-sac, expecting the salvation of sirens. But what I saw was the beginning of a nightmare that had been simmering in our neighborhood for 6 months, a nightmare named Karen Whitlock. Oakwood Estates had once been a normal place. That changed when Karen Whitlock was elected HOA president. Only 15 people had shown up to the annual meeting, and Karen, a woman who treated suburban aesthetics with the fervor of a religious zealot, took the gavel and never let go. Within weeks, she had implemented Security Phase 1. She claimed the neighborhood was under threat from outsiders. She installed unapproved, high-resolution surveillance cameras on every streetlight. Most disturbingly, she used HOA dues to hire a compliance task force, 3 men who had no law enforcement training, no licenses, and a penchant for cruelty. They wore black tactical vests, heavy boots, and carried batons. They patrolled in a matte black SUV, stopping residents to demand ID and questioning children playing in their own driveways. We called them the HOA cops, and under Karen's direction, they had turned our quiet streets into a series of checkpoints. The wail of the siren finally cut through the afternoon air. I saw the flashing red and white lights of the ambulance as it turned onto North Ridge. My heart leaped with relief. But the relief died instantly. The matte black HOA SUV swerved into the middle of the road, nose to nose with the ambulance, blocking the entire narrow thoroughfare. A man named Silas Vance, a hulking, sour-faced enforcer who had spent the last month harassing my neighbors, stepped out of the vehicle. He wasn't carrying a clipboard. He was carrying a black metal baseball bat. State your business. Vance bellowed, standing in the center of the road as the ambulance slowed to a halt, its siren still screaming. The driver's side window of the ambulance rolled down. Medical emergency. We have a child in respiratory distress. Move your vehicle now. This is a restricted residential zone, Vance replied, his voice flat and mechanical. No unauthorized commercial vehicles without HOA clearance. I need to see your permit and log your entry. Are you insane? The paramedic, a woman named Sarah, shouted as she jumped out of the passenger side. She grabbed her medical bag and started sprinting toward my house. There's a kid dying 30 feet away. Move the truck. What happened next was captured by 4 different ring cameras and the dash cam of the ambulance. It remains the most horrific display of ego I have ever witnessed. As Sarah tried to run past him, Vance didn't just step in her way. He pivoted, his face contorted in a mask of indignant rage. He viewed her bypass not as a life-saving measure, but as a personal insult to his authority. I said stay back. Vance roared. He swung the metal bat. The first blow caught Sarah in the ribs, the sound of the impact sickeningly loud. She crumpled to the asphalt, gasping. Before she could even process the pain, Vance swung again, a overhead strike that caught her across the temple. She fell silent, her body limp beside her medical bag, just yards away from where my son was turning blue on the grass. This area is restricted. Vance screamed at the horrified driver and the neighbors who were beginning to spill onto their porches. I am the designated enforcement officer. Nobody moves until I verify the credentials. Something broke inside me. Seeing my son dying and a woman bleeding on the pavement because a man in a fake vest wanted to play God, it stripped away every ounce of hesitation. I didn't think about the rules. I didn't think about the bat. I charged. Vance was turning back toward the ambulance driver, raising the bat again, when I hit him. I wasn't a fighter, but I had the momentum of a father's desperation. I tackled him into the side of his black SUV. We hit the metal with a bone-jarring thud. The bat clattered to the ground. I pinned his arms, screaming for the other EMT to help Leo. Get to my son. Go. Now. The driver didn't wait. He scrambled out with the oxygen tank, sprinting past the now crying crowd of neighbors. I held Vance down, my knees buried in his chest, as he snarled and spat at me, threatening me with permanent expulsion and legal ruin. Shut up, I whispered, my voice shaking with a rage so cold it surprised me. Just shut up. Neighbors were everywhere now, their phones raised like shields. Bill from across the street was filming Vance's face. Mrs. Gable was calling the real police. The authority Vance had spent months building was evaporating in the heat of a summer afternoon. The real law arrives. The state police arrived 4 minutes later. They didn't stop at the gate. They didn't show ID to the HOA. They roared onto North Ridge, 6 cruisers deep. They found Sarah, the paramedic, regaining consciousness but severely concussed. They found my son Leo, finally taking shallow breaths through an oxygen mask, his eyes wide and terrified. And they found me, still holding the HOA cop in the dirt. The lead trooper didn't even look at Vance's badge. He kicked the metal bat away and hauled Vance up by the back of his vest. "You're under arrest for attempted murder and assault on a first responder," the trooper said, his voice like iron. "I have a directive." Vance screamed, looking toward Karen Whitlock's house. Karen authorized the blockade. I was following the bylaws. The trooper leaned in close. "Son, the bylaws don't cover a felony." And Karen's next. The collapse of the Oakwood Estates HOA was the fastest in state history. Within 48 hours, the security task force was disbanded by court order. Karen Whitlock tried to hide behind her lawyers, claiming she had never told Vance to use physical violence. But the investigation, led by the district attorney's office, uncovered a digital paper trail of madness. In a series of encrypted emails to her enforcers, Karen had written, "The residents need to understand that the gate is absolute. Do not allow emergency services to bypass our protocols. If they try to push through, use whatever force is necessary to maintain the integrity of the perimeter. We are the law in Oakwood." Silas Vance, convicted of attempted murder, aggravated assault on a first responder, impersonating law enforcement, and false imprisonment. Because he had struck a paramedic during a life-saving operation, the judge handed down a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was also ordered to pay $1.2 million in civil damages to the paramedic. Karen Whitlock, charged with conspiracy to commit aggravated assault, criminal negligence, and obstruction of justice. She was sentenced to 15 years in state prison. The return of the neighborhood. Today, Oakwood Estates looks different. The black SUVs are gone, sold at a police auction. The surveillance cameras were ripped down by a group of neighbors on a Saturday morning, replaced by bird feeders and hanging plants. The HOA itself was dissolved under state oversight. We don't have a board anymore. We have a neighborhood committee that meets for barbecues and talks about fixing the potholes. Sarah, the paramedic, eventually returned to work. She still has a scar near her temple, a mark of the day she nearly died trying to save a child she didn't know. Leo is healthy now, his asthma managed by a doctor, not a compliance officer. We learned a hard lesson that year. We learned that when you let a few people take too much power in the name of order, you eventually lose the very thing you were trying to protect. Now, when a siren wails in the distance, we don't look for a blockade. We step onto our porches, we wave the ambulance through, and we remember that the only true authority in a community is the kindness we show to one another.